Welcome to Airshow 100. Today we're at Royal Air Force Waddington in Lincolnshire for a fast jet extravaganza. The Royal Air Force is justifiably proud of its heritage, and nothing typifies that more than the Battle of Britain memorial flight. The formation of Spitfire, Hurricane and Lancaster is an airshow favourite, and it remains one of the most evocative sights and sounds of a British airshow summer. The Battle of Britain memorial flight serves as a flying memorial to the British, Commonwealth and foreign airmen and women who served in the Royal Air Force during World War II. The historic flight dates back to 1957, when they operated from Biggin Hill with 3 Spitfires and 1 Hurricane. With the arrival of the Lancaster in 1973, the group became formally known as the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, or BBMF, and it's now based at RAF Coningsby. The flight now operates 11 aircraft of 5 different types, and can draw on 5 Spitfires for their numerous displays around the country. This Spitfire flying at Waddington is a Mark 5B that came off the production line at Castle Bromwich in August 1941. There are 2 Hurricanes in the BBMF, and this Mark 2C first flew on the 1st of January 1944, and it's believed to be the last Hurricane to enter service with the Royal Air Force. Indeed, LF-363 stayed in service with the RAF until a crash landing in 1991, returning as new to the BBMF in 1998. The flight's manned by serving RAF aircrew, and Ed Straw, a sentry pilot here at Waddington, explains why the Lancaster is such a joy to fly.
It's a beautiful aircraft to fly. The controls are beautifully harmonised and it's not a problem. Landings and takeoffs, you have to be very careful with it. It doesn't like crosswinds, and we're very, very careful operating the aircraft with any amount of crosswind. But other than that, it's a wonderful aeroplane to fly. We restrict the hours to 100 hours a year on the Lancaster. Also, we manage it to try and fit in as many events as we can within that 100 hours. It's as popular now as ever. The request for it to participate in events just grows every year. All of the aircrew, other than the boss of the Battle of Britain flight, are part-time volunteers. So we've all got our own primary jobs, and then we do that voluntarily in our own time. It's been difficult the last 2 years with the Afghanistan war and the recent Iraqi war. Fortunately for me, for the Iraqi war, that happened out of the season, so I managed to go and get that done and come back just in time for the start of the season. So as long as there's no major incidents around the world, I'll be okay to fly.
And after the break, we'll really turn up the volume with some spectacular fast jet flying. RAF Waddington is home to the RAF's fleet of electronic surveillance and radar aircraft, the Nimrod and the Sentry. But as well as being a busy frontline station, each year Waddington hosts a massive airshow where the cream of the European air forces fly alongside the best that the RAF display teams have got to offer. And first up, from the Belgian Air Force, comes this Alpha jet, flown by instructor Thierry Calbert.
moment I'm working in the 7th Squadron, so it's in Beauvais Air Base, and our role in that squadron is we are in fact evaluating and instructing instructor pilots, and we're also evaluating student pilots. So basic job of me is to train pilots to become instructor pilots and to evaluate them afterwards, and to evaluate the students during their progress in their flying training. I do it on this aircraft, the Alpha Jet. I also do it on the Marchetti, which is the aircraft where all pilots in the Belgian Air Force begin with. It's a small propeller aircraft which has about 260 horsepower, where they start their training. So I fly both aircraft as an instructor. The nicest thing about it is it's not fly-by-wire. I used to fly the F-16, and there you can ask a lot of the aircraft, but the computer is giving you what it wants you to give. Over here, we're flying the basic aircraft, and it's just cables, so you are and the pilot and the computer, and that's the nice thing about it. So you can ask a lot of it, and you can do maneuvers that modern jets like the F-18 and the F-16 cannot do. The unique thing about it is the roll rate. So as soon as you accelerate to around 300, 350 knots, if you then go for a full aileron deflection, it rolls at 400 degrees a second, and that's fast.
Calbert's display is what you'd expect from a pilot that trains instructors, though he modestly claims that even his grandmother could perform these inverted roles. This is what Calbert calls his carrier landing. The ground, or carrier, stays still, but the Alpha Jet bounces around to simulate the waves at sea. At the last moment, he levels out for a perfect landing. The first time he did this, his colleagues in the 7th Squadron thought he had a severe equipment malfunction. Now they know he's just crazy. And also from the Belgian Air Force comes this F-16. I spoke to one of the American F-16 pilots here at Waddington. In many ways, it's an older generation of combat aircraft now, but it's been updated so often. What's it like to fly?
Well, it's all updated in the avionics. And the cool thing about the F-16 is that the stick is very sensitive. It's more of a joystick-like, flown by computers. So you can just think about rolling left or right and it'll roll. And then you can really do a lot of things because you don't have to worry about exceeding limits. The computer does most of the thinking.
And so what role is your squadron involved in?
Air to ground, targeting pods. We didn't carry any targeting pods with us here. We carry the targeting pod right on the right of the nose gear. And with those, we target LGBs, and we also drop precision munitions with the JDAMs.
So everything now is precision? Do you use any sort of unguided weapons?
We have them in the inventory. We practice, we train with them, but in most warfare, we don't accept collateral damage much anymore, so we're transitioning to mostly all precision guided stuff.
And the F-16 for air-to-air combat is a pretty capable aircraft.
It's extremely capable, and that's why we practice it in case they need to do it. Plus, it helps. The training in air-to-air helps you learn just basic flying skills that you transfer into air-to-ground. Plus, we can go in unescorted, whereas we can carry bombs. We don't need people to fly in with us to protect us. We can do our own protection, which makes it nice.
The display pilot here from the Belgian Air Force is John van de Bosch, who exploits the immense power and manoeuvrability of the aircraft to the full in an excellent display for the Waddington crowds. Watching this performance, it's easy to forget that we're looking at an aircraft with a decades-old design and which evolved from a prototype program of the early 1970s. The requirement then was for a high-performance, low-cost weapons system for the US Air Force and allied nations, and to date there have been 4,400 aircraft ordered by 24 countries, making the F-16 Fighting Falcon the world's most popular modern fighter. It's expected that the F-16 will still be in operational service beyond 2030. Opportunities in 2003 were few and far between when it came to seeing modern American fast jet displays. But Waddington still managed to provide the thrills. And here's another American type displayed by a European Air Force. This Boeing F-18 Hornet appeared courtesy of the Spanish Air Force and is flown at the show by Captain Javier Canellas. The F-18 Hornet is actually based on the unsuccessful contender for the US Air Force contract eventually won by the F-16. Northrop took their unsuccessful offering and adapted it for carrier operations, and in the process created a swing-roll aircraft uniquely suited to the needs of the US Navy and Marine Corps. The Hornet soon became the backbone of every carrier wing and begat the even more capable FA-18 Super Hornet. The Spanish Air Force regularly sends one of their Hornets to the Waddington show, and the quality of the display ensures that they're welcomed back year after year. Outside the US Navy and Marine Corps, there are 7 countries operating the F-18. The Spanish Hornets, some 96 in total including latest orders, operate from 3 bases, at Zaragoza, Torreo and Merrill. And we slow down a little now for the Royal Jordanian Falcons, formed by King Hussein of Jordan in 1976. The King was a keen aviator and wanted an aerobatic team to represent the professionalism of the state airline and the Jordanian aeronautics industry. The team are made up of Royal Jordanian Airline pilots and are a fitting legacy to the late King. Originally operating Pit Specials, the team are now a popular airshow attraction in their Extra 300s that they've been using since 1993. Let's enjoy the show in the blue summer skies over Waddington. the Army Air Corps was represented at Waddington in the form of the Blue Eagle display team. The team dates back to 1968, when they were formed by instructors at the School of Army Aviation. After various name changes and disbandments, the team are now a regular airshow fixture, and they certainly bring something unique to the display scene. The Blue Eagles fly 4 Gazelles and 1 Lynx aircraft, having moved from an entirely Lynx-based team in 1993 due to the shortage of crews available to fly the displays. The remaining Lynx is still the star of the show, however, and flown by team leader Major Ray Turner. It manages to perform stunts that you'd think impossible in a helicopter. Flying close formation in rotary aircraft is a dangerous business, and certainly equal to fast jet formation work in terms of pilot skill and concentration. And the Blue Eagles certainly excel in both these areas. The Army Air Corps also sent their historic flight to the Waddington show. This consists of an Oster A9, de Havilland Beaver and Chipmunk fixed-wing aircraft, and the Augusta Belle Sioux, the Alouette II and the Westland Scout rotary aircraft. Both fixed-wing and rotary line up for an unorthodox flypast to conclude their display. The RAF Sea Kings operate in a search and rescue role all around the United Kingdom, and the big yellow helicopter has been a very welcome sight for many a sailor or climber in distress. The range of the Sea King is some 280 miles, and it can carry up to 18 passengers. When recovering people from the ground, the winch operator can also control the helicopter in the hover to help him be as accurate as possible with the positioning of the harness. And here's another satisfied customer. For many, the McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom is regarded as the classic Cold War jet, though it was very much a combat-hardened aircraft for the Americans in Vietnam. The Phantom was originally developed for the US Navy, but adopted by the United States Air Force, who ended up taking more than half of the total 5,000 aircraft produced. In the UK, the Royal Navy took delivery of Phantoms in 1968 to replace their carrier-based Sea Vixens, while the Royal Air Force operated the Phantom in the ground attack, air defence and tactical reconnaissance roles. More than 40 years on from the debut flight of the F-4 in 1958, many still remain in service with air arms around the world. This example comes to Waddington from the German Luftwaffe at Hobston, and its crew tell us that there are only 8 hours left on this particular airframe before the aircraft is scrapped. So this is probably the last time you'll see this particular Phantom in operation. after the break, we join a training mission on a Waddington-based E3A Sentry. When I was on Tornado F3s with 11 Squadron, we used to regularly take part in huge multinational air defence exercises, and those exercises were controlled by the Sentry aircraft based here at RAF Waddington. The most distinguishing feature of the Sentry is the huge rotordome which sits on the back of the aircraft. It contains the aircraft's radar system and its IFF, Identification Friend or Foe, an electronic system which tells the crew on board if the aircraft that they're looking at are friendly or, more importantly, hostile. And this capability was put to the test in recent conflicts in Afghanistan and in Iraq, where the Sentry was flying missions up to 17 hours long. But being ready for combat means constant training in exercises designed to be as realistic as possible. We joined a Sentry flight controlling a war scenario over Scotland. However, our first attempt didn't go quite according to plan. Our captain picks up the story.
I'm the captain of the Sentry, so that means really I'm in charge of the crew. My job really is to get the radar where the TD wants it, the tactical director, such that he can get the picture he needs. I have to get it to the position he wants to see, and then I have to arrange to keep the aircraft there for as long as he needs to see that picture. A Boeing 707, it's a 1950s design, and in fact the aircraft we flew today, 107, is the last Boeing 707 ever made in the early 90s. The flying controls and the flight instruments are basically the same. It's still cables and pulleys. The only powered flying controls are the rudder. Most of the flight instruments are the old analogue design. There's a little bit of flat panel development coming into the cockpit now. Everything was running fine. We're running a little bit late, but the taxi out was all normal. And I was sitting in the right-hand seat, and I had a good look down the runway, saw nothing. And we started our takeoff run. The co was flying it in the left-hand seat. Just a fraction of a second before V1, I saw about 30 large gulls on the runway, and I thought we were in trouble at that point. We continued with the takeoff, and just as we rotated, we hit multiple birds. I think we probably hit at least 10. And they were black-backed gulls, I think they're called. And they're big birds, they weigh over 2 kilograms. It is a critical phase of flight. The decision's made for me by the amount of birds that I've hit. There's no way I can continue with the mission. So I'm checking the power of the aircraft, I'm checking that the engines are still functioning, I'm checking the instruments, and then my next priority is to get clear of the ground.
Ed, let me first have a look at the wings.
Organise a visual inspection of the aircraft, get everything settled down to get us safely away from the ground, and then think about our recovery back to Waddington. So we have quite a lot of fuel to get rid of, to get down to our landing weight. And once we'd completed that, it's a case of doing a low-speed handling check. I'm checking that both wings function, that the flaps on both wings come down the same, that the aircraft handles correctly, that the gear comes down correctly. I take the flap and the gear down to the landing configuration and then just manoeuvre the aircraft gently just to check that it handles as I expect it to. I could see the engineers looking at something which immediately made me think there was damage. It was only after we spoke to them that I realised it was on the undercarriage unit, but one had impacted on the hydraulic brake hose, and so when we used the brakes, that caused the hydraulic fluid to leak out.
Undaunted, we made a second attempt to join a Sentry training flight the next day with a new crew, and we were all hoping for a rather more routine flight.
No significant turbulence and no significant high cloud. Moderate probability of finding atmospheric ducts today between 3,500 and 6,000 feet, which could affect almost any wavelength. The chopper pause should be at 39,000 feet with trails likely above 330.
Okay, just run through the high value asset attack defence profile again. Threat we're expecting is from F-15Cs from Cyanoka, approximately 200 miles away from the southwest. Calls we're expecting to hear or give out will be fade from ourselves.
With our Met and mission brief out of the way, we were now ready to join our joint maritime exercise somewhere in the skies above northern Scotland. Our sentry would be providing a radar picture of the exercise area, and we could therefore be susceptible to attack from hostile forces. Our captain for the day, Paul Bradshaw, tells us about the unique handling characteristics of the aircraft.
As a pilot's aeroplane, it's wonderful. It really is nice. When we're sitting up the front handling the aircraft, we don't know that the rotodome is fitted to the aircraft. The takeoff performance takes into account the fact that the weight of the rotodome is behind the wheels, and if any swing develops, you would be able to counter that. And when we're in flight, it's aerodynamically neutral. It should in fact carry itself. What you do get though is either a screening of the rudder from the airflow, or the air is straightened. So if you need to use the rudder, say an engine failure case, there is an automatic rudder system which will cut in and deflect the rudder fully, and then it slowly tapers off with time and airspeed. And once we fly away and we've put a little bit of rudder in ourselves, the aircraft's very manageable. But if we haven't got the hydraulic rudder, what we call an RBO, rudder boost out approach and landing, then we have to increase our approach speed by 30 knots. And that takes care of the fact that we haven't got full deflection of the rudder, we've only got a manual rudder with a small deflection. To fly the missions, to fly around in circles for 8 hours can be tedious. The problem is probably boredom. If you don't interact with the crew, then you can get bored. But there's always time in the air to read through the manuals and ask the engineer questions, or do someone else's job for a short while, just so that you can pick up on what they do, if they have problems, what it actually means when they tell you they've got a problem.
Meanwhile, the training exercise had already started for the mission crew in the back of the Sentry.
This tends to be a rare chance for us to do this type of training, usually because of the restriction of civil aviation airspace. Normally in the UK we're tied into boxes which have been given to us by the CAA. Fortunately, during this exercise we have a bit more flexibility. We've been allocated this large green area here where we are free to manoeuvre up to 55,000 feet and do whatever we like.
And Razor 2, filling the blocks here over to flight level 550 on the QNH 1007.
What we've got here now is some unknown aircraft up here. We believe that they are the F-15s that may be coming to attack us. We're just trying to work out exactly who they are. At the moment we're warning the flight deck where they are from us. They're a good 170 miles away at the moment, so we're safe and happy. However, if they start closing us, that's when we'll start reacting. We're playing that if they come within 120 miles of us, then we are going to start some reactions.
As it declares at 0530, 12,000 hostile engage. 5540, 16,000 hostile.
Okay, this is the E3 here. We're just turning away against this threat here, the F-15s. We've now established that there are 4 F-15s there coming on in towards us. We don't know at this moment whether they're coming for the package or for us. We've yet to ascertain that. The package of aircraft consisted of many strike aircraft carrying bombs, electronic support aircraft, and also fighter aircraft.
SC FA on net 2, confirm that was we've lost the radar at the moment.
Hopefully it will come back soon, but in the meantime, what IFF only?
Copy that. At the moment they are bandits. Wait for an update shortly. Weapons FA, sure you've limited your services now because of the radar. Break TD, can we have a declare on track 23135?
Track 3135.
FA, weapons 3 and 2.
Savage, group ball 01746. Hostile, clear exercise engaged, tip good.
We now believe that the F-15s are coming for us. The 3 sets of F-3s here are now committing against them under our control. We are now turning away to increase the distance, safety distance for ourselves.
Radio is still active, treat the danger active up to 55,000. Roger. Northerly 03541, timber good, 2 groups.
Okay, situation now. The F-15s are still manoeuvring here. and the F3, our defensive caps, are located here. What we're doing over here now is we're turning back to try and help this package.
Weapons, it's a full up or clear of cloud. Weapons 4 check.
All players, it's a full up or magic mail saying it. Full up, clear of I want to take some to the north of the range. The ranges are still hot. I say again, the ranges are still hot.
One of the main problems we have here is that red area is a danger area imposed on us, so our aircraft are not allowed in there. And it's right in the middle of our airspace, unfortunately. No aircraft allowed in there. It's been closed for some reason that we've been trying to get the information about. But as yet it's not been made available to us, so we have to stay clear of it.
Danger area is still active. Treat the danger active up to 55,000. Weapons 4, copy to acknowledgement on the danger areas. Also the radar's back for control.
The F-15s have now split. One set going that way, one set that way. It looks as though it's a pair in each direction at the moment.
Groups just spaced up heavy. 038 morning. Still showing 5 mile war northerly.
Okay, my arrows where you're capping, the packages are coming through. Some of them are up at medium level. It may be a factor.
Copy that, thanks.
Fact and copy, they're at medium level. They could well be a factor for you. Make sure you keep it under one.
070, 58 easterly, manoeuvring, hostile.
701 F-15, 070, 58, now heading west.
Okay, the situation now is that the F-15s that are over here have been engaged by the F-3s. The F-3s are claiming kills on all of the F-15s, so as far as we're concerned, the threat does not exist anymore.
Timber gun southerly, northerly group killed. Packages pushing. Set up with the F-15s. Confirm I am now allowed to use 802 and 803.
Savage 1 and 2 target there. There also.
Flanking southeasterly.
Chris, heads up that group is heading towards the package. There are friendlies there.
Copy that, they're engaged.
Acknowledgement, make sure you relay that there are friendlies in there. The package is low to medium.
Magic, you're positive now, you've dropped off the net.
Okay, there's hostiles heading outbound now, both flash. They've chased into USX and
So with the immediate threat dealt with, the sentry can return to overseeing the remainder of the operation. During the return to base, the flight deck crew can take advantage of the opportunity to simulate a 3-engined radar approach.
Track and all the way across the border. Yeah, no point because it's US or switched off.
BO1 and BO2 for me, 3,000 feet now.
811, turn right, heading 230.
Here, the control tower is constantly providing the co-pilot with detailed glide path information to ensure he can keep the correct angle and height of approach as he comes into land.
Yes.
Turn left 5 degrees, heading 195, slightly right of centre line, 2.5 miles, 750 feet. One mile, passing missed approach point. On centre line, heading 200.
100 to VCH. Co-decision is turned. Copy.
Half a mile on centre line.
Speed's good.
Surface wind 1208 knots.
50 feet.
On centre line, native 41 over touchdown.
10. All full. I'm ready to take it when you want. Okay, you have control. I have control. My nose was doing my brakes. 4,000 feet to go. 100 knots ground speed, 4,000 to go. 80 for 80 knots. Reverse idle, please. 3,000 to go.
Meanwhile, back at the show, another Waddington-based aircraft takes to the skies. The Nimrod has a unique historical pedigree, having been developed from the world's first jet airliner, the de Havilland Comet. And the aircraft is familiar to the public in its maritime role in support of many air-sea rescues. Less well known is the secondary role for which a number of aircraft were adapted. The original maritime equipment was removed from the airframe and replaced with a highly sophisticated and sensitive suite of systems used for reconnaissance and electronic intelligence gathering. The ability of the Nimrod to loiter for long periods after a high-speed dash to the area of operation make the RAF's Nimrod R1 ideally suited to this role. Having seen the Continental contingent perform at the show, it was time to see some British fast jets, and the Harrier still captures the crowd's imagination at every airshow. Although derived from the British-designed Harrier, the GR7 is actually a second-generation version of the aircraft designed by McDonnell Douglas and built by the US company in association with BAE Systems. There's a larger wing in the new aircraft, a more powerful Rolls-Royce Pegasus Mark 10 vectored thrust turbofan engine, hands-on throttle and stick controls, and a modern glass cockpit. Night attack avionics and night vision equipment make the GR7 a formidable fighting machine, and it's used in close air support, battlefield interdiction, night attack and reconnaissance roles. The Harrier will eventually be replaced by the VSTOL version of the Joint Strike Fighter F-35. Whether the F-35 will be such a crowd favourite, we'll just have to wait and see. The Airshow at Waddington's celebrating 100 years of powered flight, and it's amazing to think that in the early part of the last century, people were going to war in aircraft like this Newport Scout. In many ways, these were the Tornadoes or the F-18s of their day. A lot of people think that you can just get into a combat aircraft and display it. It's not quite like that, is it? What's the procedure?
It's well, first of all, we all volunteer, and the boss sits in his office and decides, having looked at your previous flying histories, who's the most suitable. We then go through a lengthy workup, which basically starts at 5,000 feet, then we step down to 3,000, 2,000, 1,500 feet, and then eventually 1,000 feet. Once we're at 1,000 feet, the station commander has to personally approve us down to 500 feet. 500 feet again, the station commander has to watch and approve the display is safe before we're finally cleared down to 100 feet, which is the lowest that we fly at during the display. all in all, that took about just under 50 sorties and just over 4 months.
And I guess probably more importantly for us at Waddington, you're going to be displaying the GR4 as well. What's it like as an aircraft to display?
It's good, it's got good qualities, it's looks good when it's low and fast, makes a lot of noise. It doesn't have the best turning performance as an F-16, but normally the public like the noise and the speed especially.
And then, dropping out of the skies in a very impressive manoeuvre, is the Lockheed Hercules C-130J, performing the tactical demonstration. The ability of the Hercules to get large loads into rough or unmade strips and evacuate men or equipment just as quickly has made the type invaluable in combat and disaster relief situations. 60 nations use the Hercules, and 2004 will be the aircraft's 50th anniversary. Though, with advanced glass cockpit, 6-blade composite propellers and new engines, the latest variant has little in common with the first Hercules, apart from that instantly recognisable profile. Always an airshow favourite, the Red Arrows took off for the display. Earlier, I'd taken the opportunity to speak to the Reds leader, Squadron Leader Spike Jepson. You guys make it look in many ways so easy, it's almost so perfect. It just doesn't work like that. It's a long process to work up to that sort of display, isn't it?
Yes, it's a grind. I think it's like anything that is performed to a very high standard. We train 3 times a day, every day, for 6 months to get it to the stage whereby the public come and look at it, and hopefully they think that what we put in front of them is worthy of the standard they respect. And one of the things we're very aware of is that the Red Arrows have a legacy of high performance. We know that we're given the opportunity to train. The public are very discerning, and they know what standard to expect. We have to go out there and put on good shows, but it's all through training.
And you don't just start at low level, the show that we'll see here at Waddington. It's actually a learning process, isn't it?
Yes, it is. We take 3 new guys every year, and we put them in the positions closest to me, which have the probably the least dynamic effect. And we train very carefully, very slowly. We start high and work low. We start with a few aeroplanes and build to a larger number. So it's all done in a very sort of safe building block process.
Today, we've seen the best of the current generation of military aircraft from the digital age. And flying alongside them have been aircraft from the last century of flight, bringing aviation heritage vividly to life. From Airshow 100 here at Waddington, it's goodbye.